Well, hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about episode 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4. The episode entitled Something Borrowed, Something Green. This is the episode we get to see the Orion homeworld. I love world building in Star Trek, particularly on planets and civilizations which we've heard about many times before. They've been mentioned in umpteen different episodes. I mean, let's face it, the first time we saw an Orion slave girl was back in like the Cage episode of like 1966 or whatever in Star Trek. Yet I don't believe we have ever until now visited the Orion homeworld. So what a treat this episode was, just to get a bit more world building under our belts in terms of, hey, we all know about Orions, but we've never seen what their planet looks like. So great that we went there in this episode, just to give us a bit more of an idea as to how things operate back on the Orion homeworld, which I thought was fascinating. Today we're going to talk through the episode, talk about all the bits and pieces that we saw in it and everything, and yeah, just give my normal rundown. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, be sure you don't forget to do so. Click on that big subscribe button to stay current and up to date all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. Orions, there's a probe ship. They're arguing about this and that. This sort of seems like very similar to the episode that we got a couple of episodes ago where we had like Romulans arguing about conniving stuff. This time we've got Orions talking about different headgear and different implants and metal stuff they got sticking out their heads, and I think it's sort of a form of Orion body art and whatnot that we've seen in a few episodes prior. People are arguing about that, and then this Orion ship gets wiped out by this sort of probe vessel we've seen before. Obviously we've had them taking out crews of Klingons, crews of Romulans, crews of Orions now. They're working their way through all the different Alpha Quadrant species, it would seem. And before long we get in the opening of this episode, we've got Tendi. She's off for a bit of shore leave. Doesn't seem too keen to do it this episode. She sort of seems, oh, do I really have to go home? It seemed like she was kind of keen to get out of Orion and become part of Starfleet, but now she sort of has to go back and see the family and be a guest at her sister's wedding, and it doesn't appear she's too keen to do that. Mariner and T'Lyn are going to accompany her on her journey back to Orion, which seems like it's a bit of a girls' weekend away kind of thing, which is a bit of fun. Meanwhile, we've got Boimler and Rutherford buddying up in quarters. They're having a good time sharing a room there on the Cerritos, but a little bit of conflict creeping in. We've got them trying to fight over who gets to water the bonsai plant, which sort of seems a little bit frivolous, but anyway. And as the girls get to Orion, we obviously see them leaping off buildings with ropes and swords and everything with sort of puffy shirts, and it's like, geez, for a race that doesn't want to be kind of labelled as pirates, they're sure going about it the wrong way in terms of their clothing and their demeanour, and obviously we know that Orions are a matriarchal society. It's sort of run by the women, and it seems that Tendi's position as mistress of the winter constellations is perhaps a little higher in stature than we had been previously led to believe. We sort of knew that she was kind of getting up there, I suppose, with a bit of a title of this such. But I think she's, maybe in one of the higher up families and everything that operates, I guess, on a somewhat more Elizabethan-y sort of level of design and, it's sort of all that sort of pomp and grandeur of sort of the Renaissance almost, on Orion here. We've got sort of very ornate artwork. It's all sort of, castles and French Renaissance sort of period, even Georgian, I suppose, maybe in the sort of the flounciness of the pomp and grandeur of the culture, I suppose you'd say. We get the girls carried on a bit of a throne. Obviously, the females are put on a bit of a pedestal, quite literally, in this culture. The girls hoisted up there and carried along by the males, and it seems like Mariner's really thoroughly enjoying it all. We get to meet Tendi's parents, Shona and Bert, and find out that Tendi's sister, Erica, has gone missing, feared to be kidnapped, preceding the wedding nuptials or whatever, which, is a common occurrence on Orion, but apparently the timing or whatever just seems completely off. It's not happened when it was meant to happen. even though it is sort of a common thing, and it's basically Tendy's job to go and to recover her sister, find out where she's gone, who's kidnapped her or whatever, and bring her back in time for the wedding. Meanwhile, on the holodeck, we've got Boimler and Rutherford having a bit of holodeck time with Samuel Clemens, or not with Samuel Clemens, but being Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. We saw Samuel Clemens back in Next Generation, Times Arrow double-part episode. So it was sort of fun hearing Rutherford and Boimler speaking to each other in kind of old-timey kind of speak, you know, puffing each other up to work through their issues with who gets to water the bonsai plant. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, really, just work it out. It's not a big deal. Meanwhile, the ladies are off to the nightclub district on Orion, and obviously the bouncer there letting Tendy through the door quite effortlessly. He's bowing to her and giving her all kinds of platitudes and everything, and she's quite embarrassed by this side of things because obviously she's quite high up in stature on Orion and doesn't like to kind of maybe broadcast that too much. There's a little bit of conflict in the Orion nightclub there. Marina ends up getting herself stabbed in the shoulder with a knife, which becomes a bit of a recurring theme in this episode. I think she ends up getting stabbed about 4 times in exactly the same place in the shoulder throughout the course of the episode. So that's kind of a bit of fun. And Tendy plays this kind of fun drinking game with one of her other former classmates. So someone that she's got a bit of rivalry with there on Orion. They have to do shots. And as they put the shots down on the table, there's a lethal insect that's trying to sting them. And if they don't put their shot glass down in time, the creature will sting them, and so they have to keep drinking. It looks like a pretty lethal kind of drinking game. I guess it's a common practice on Orion to do this. Meanwhile, back in the holodeck, Boimler and Rutherford are getting along pretty well as the two Mark Twains. They're blowing smoke up each other, so to speak. And in their search for Tendy's sister, they end up in what Mariner refers to as the Orion Hump Dungeon. A lot of females putting out their Orion pheromones, having the men go a bit crazy for them. And we've got people sniffing armpits and whatnot and all sorts of things. It's okay, good on you. Whatever floats your boat, I suppose. Erica, they question her previous partner, see if they can work out where she's gone, who's kidnapped her. This ex-partner of hers, Niall, who kind of, with a bit of coaxing from some pheromones or whatever, lets them know where she might be. I love the line from I guess you'd call her the boss lady or the madam or something of this facility or whatever, where she kind of says, "All I have is my stink." I laughed at that because obviously all this control that Orion females seem to have over the male population is all based on pheromones and all this sort of stuff, the very powerful pheromones that Orion's females have. Meanwhile, back on the Cerritos, we've got Freeman trying to negotiate with a Chalnoth alien, Kokar. He's one of these races that we saw in Next Generation. I think Picard was stuck in a room with a bunch of aliens. There was a Bolian there, and there was a Chalnoth, and he sort of looked like a bit like a lion sort of type race. Big fangs and a bit of a mane kind of thing going on. I don't think we really saw Chalnoths very much beyond that. That was the most memorable appearance that I remember from Next Generation. Great that Lower Decks are kind of making use of some of these ancillary aliens that we sort of had seen before, but haven't really seen much of. And as a means to try to get along with this race a bit better, Rutherford and Boimler suggest they use the Samuel Clemens holodeck program to try to, because it worked so well for them, to try to get them kind of a bit more friendly. And it doesn't really go down too well. Doesn't work anywhere near like they thought it might work. However, the bonsai plant that gets referenced sparks his interest and ends up being a nice snack for him to devour, much to Rutherford and Boimler's horror, that their beloved bonsai just got eaten by a Chalnoth. Tendy finally finds her sister, Erica. She's been hanging out in an Orion ship graveyard, where they end up going on a Raven class, a Federation Raven class ship. This was the same class as the one that Seven of Nine was on with her parents back in the day when they got all assimilated by the Borg. So it was sort of cool. We got to see another Raven class vessel or whatever in this episode. And we get to find out a bit more about Tendy's, supposed where she was meant to go before she ended up joining Starfleet. She was meant to become trained as a syndicate assassin. And she was obviously the primary in her family to become this quite high up position. but she wasn't into that. She was into science stuff, so she went and joined Starfleet, and that position then fell to her sister to take on. And they have a bit of a scuffle. The two sisters here, Tendi having to, just leave and go and, leave the family and everything. So there was a bit of animosity wrapped up in that decision. So it would seem that all along this De'Erica ended up kidnapping herself to lure Tendi back and had this situation out with her. Mariner gets stabbed in the shoulder yet again. A few times in this episode, poor old Mariner just keeps getting stabbed. I guess it's in the same place every time, so at least she's not getting multiple injuries and multiple wounds. They're just all end up in the same shoulder. And interesting to note that the voice of De'Erica in this episode was played by Ariel Winter, who, if anybody out there watched Modern Family, the daughter Alex in Modern Family was the voice for De'Erica in this episode. The wedding goes ahead now that Tendi found her sister without a hitch, it would seem, besides Mariner probably getting stabbed in the shoulder again with the knife. And even though their bonsai's been eaten, they adopt a new program, being one of dueling Mozarts. Sort of a quirky end to the episode. All in all, I thought this episode was quite interesting. I think the world building for Orion, I think, was great. We didn't get 1,001 past references and everything, but that's okay. We didn't necessarily need that. The stuff going on with Rutherford and Boimler was kind of cool as well to see, and some quirky stuff in there with the Chalnoth. Good that we got the Chalnoth race in there, having seen that before in Next Gen, but having never kind of seen them too much prior to that or since then. Overall, my favourite part of this episode was just the fact that we got to expand the lore of the Star Trek race that has been known about for many, many years, but we haven't really delved into their society, what their planet looks like, their architecture, their sort of, the way that, everything's sort of governed and everything works in terms of the society on Orion. So the fact that we got to add a few more details to a long-known Star Trek race, I think was great in this episode. But guys, let me know what you think. Leave a thought in the comments section, and let me know what you thought about episode 4 of Lower Decks, season 4, Something Borrowed, Something Green. Guys, check out my merch in the merch store. There's always a sale going on. You can pick yourself up a cool hoodie or a t-shirt or a cap or a mug or a sticker or something at a great bargain price and help support the channel at the same time. So much appreciated there. I'll be back really soon with my next video. I'll catch you guys soon.